Hands where I can see them. Don't move.
Don't move. Oh, they're up. I'm not moving, man.
You been drinking tonight?
No, sir. Just swerved around a pothole.
Cole, relax. Let's keep this by the book.
Book says you stay still till I say otherwise.
License and registration, slow and steady.
Reaching now. It's in the glove
Watch your
box.
hands.
Good, I got eyes. Go ahead.
The night was quiet until the call came in. A disturbance at a small roadside motel on the edge of town. Officer Daniel Reese arrived first, headlights cutting through the rain. The radio hissed in the background. Inside the lobby, two people argued behind the counter. It looked routine. But within minutes, everything changed. Voices rose. A command was issued. "Turn off the camera." Those 4 words froze the air. Reese hesitated, his finger hovering over the button. What he didn't know was that his body cam was already recording more than sound. It was recording the moment that would destroy his career. The footage that followed would tear through the department, spark an internal investigation, and reveal a truth no one was ready to face. Officer Daniel Reese sat in his cruiser, rain tapping against the windshield, when dispatch came through with a disturbance report. The caller said 2 people were yelling inside a roadside motel. Routine, simple noise complaint. But the tone in the dispatcher's voice had a strange edge, hesitant, quiet. Reese noted it but didn't dwell on it. He'd been on the force for 11 years. Nights like this were his normal. He turned onto Highway 16, the wipers squeaking across glass as a light fog rolled in. The motel sat alone under flickering neon. "Sunny Rest," the sign read, though nothing about it felt sunny. Paint peeled from the siding, and the parking lot was empty except for 2 cars, a red sedan and an unmarked black SUV. Reese stepped out. His boots hit the wet pavement, splashing through puddles. The air smelled of gasoline and cheap coffee from the diner across the road. He adjusted his vest and checked his camera, green light on. Recording. He pushed open the glass door to the lobby. Inside, a man and woman stood at the counter, faces tight with anger. The woman clutched a phone. The man's hands were balled into fists at his sides. Behind the desk, the motel clerk looked ready to bolt. Reese kept his tone level. "Evening. What's going on here?" The woman turned first. "He followed me here," she said, voice shaking. "He's not supposed to be near me," the man shot back. "She's lying." "She stole from me." Reese stepped between them. "Everyone calm down. Let's keep this civil." He took the man's ID, then the woman's. Her name was Amber Hayes. His, Colin Ward. A note flashed in Reese's mind. Ward had been mentioned once in briefing. Some minor involvement in a narcotics case. Nothing solid. He decided to call it in anyway. As Reese reached for his radio, a door opened behind him. Another officer walked in, Sergeant Miller. Heavy-set, mid-50s, 30 years on the job. Reese respected him. Miller had been a mentor since Reese joined the department. Tonight, though, his face looked different. Harder. Focused. Miller nodded toward the arguing pair. "I'll handle this, Reese." Reese hesitated. "You sure? I've already got IDs." "Yeah, step outside a second," Miller said quietly. "Need a word." Reese followed him into the rain. The neon light buzzed overhead. Miller's tone dropped lower. "Turn off your camera." Reese frowned. "What for?" "Because this isn't what it looks like," Miller said. "You don't need this one on record." Reese's stomach tightened. Policy said never stop recording unless ordered by a superior during classified operations. This wasn't that. "Sir, we're supposed to keep footage rolling." Miller's jaw flexed. "You're new enough to think everything's by the book. It's not. Turn it off." Reese looked at the small camera clipped to his chest. The green light blinked steady. He didn't move. Miller stepped closer, eyes narrowed. "That's an order." The rain filled the silence between them. Reese's finger hovered near the button. Then he dropped his hand. Understood. He didn't press it. They went back inside. The argument between Amber and Colin had cooled, but tension still hung heavy. Miller took charge, pulling Colin aside while Reese spoke with Amber. She looked frightened but composed. "He grabbed my arm in the parking lot," she said. "Said I owe him money. For what?" "Something he sold me last month. I tried to tell him I didn't want any part of it." Reese wrote notes, voice steady though his pulse climbed. "Drugs again. It always circled back to that. Across the room, Miller was speaking softly to Colin. Too softly. Reese caught only fragments. "Not here. Handle this clean." Something about the tone made his neck prickle. Amber shifted closer. "Officer, is he arresting him?" Reese glanced over. Miller wasn't cuffing anyone. He was pocketing something, a small plastic bag. Then he turned and waved Reese over. "Everything's good here," Miller said. "False alarm." Reese's brows pulled together. "She said he grabbed her." Misunderstanding. "She's not pressing charges." Amber froze. "That's not what I said." Miller's glare cut across the room. "You want to spend the night in custody for obstruction?" Reese stepped in. "Sarge, hold on." Miller cut him off. "We're done here, Reese." Reese didn't argue. He escorted Amber outside under the awning. Rain fell harder now, cold and steady. She looked at him, voice trembling. "Are you going to let him go?" "I'll file the report," he said quietly. "But you need to leave for now." She hesitated, then got into her car and drove off. Reese watched until her taillights disappeared down the highway. When he turned back, Miller was locking the lobby door behind him. "Paperwork says verbal dispute." "Nothing more," Miller said. "We're clear." Reese nodded, though unease settled deep in his chest. He followed Miller back to their cruisers. Before parting, Miller clapped a hand on his shoulder. "Remember, Reese, some things don't belong on camera." Reese said nothing. He drove back toward the precinct, windshield wipers beating in rhythm with his thoughts. Something about the call felt wrong. Too quick. Too quiet. He reviewed the incident mentally, line by line. Then it hit him. He hadn't turned off the camera. He pulled into a dark lot, shifted into park, and checked the Bodycam. Still recording. 2 hours of footage. His pulse quickened. Every word, every movement, every second of that exchange captured, including Miller's order. Protocol said to upload immediately to the secure server. But if he did, Miller would know. And if he didn't, it would mean violating procedure himself. Either way, he was trapped. Reese sat in silence, rain drumming on the roof. Then he made a choice. He logged into the system and uploaded the footage under routine classification, no flags attached. Standard shift entry. Nothing special. He went home, but sleep never came. Images replayed in his head. The plastic bag, Miller's tone, Amber's fear. Something was buried under that call. 2 days later, Internal Affairs knocked on his door. They asked him to come in for a statement. Standard review, they said. Routine Bodycam audit. Reese didn't believe it. At headquarters, they led him into a small room, sat him down, and played the footage. Every frame. The sound of Miller's voice echoed through the speakers. "Turn off your camera." The IA officer paused the video. "You didn't comply?" "No, sir. Why not? Policy. I'm required to keep recording." The officer's expression didn't change. "Good, because what you recorded isn't routine." They continued the playback. The footage zoomed in as Miller pocketed the small plastic bag. IA froze the frame. Inside the bag was a white powder. Reese's gut twisted. The officer leaned forward. "Do you know what that is?" "No, that's evidence. From an ongoing case. A case that went missing last month." Reese stayed silent. The officer nodded slowly. "You did the right thing by not turning off that camera. But this won't stay quiet. Not when it involves a veteran sergeant." Reese exhaled, tension flooding out in waves. He didn't want to betray anyone. But the footage spoke for itself. It didn't lie. The camera had caught everything. By the next morning, word spread through the station. Miller had been suspended pending investigation. Reese's phone buzzed nonstop. Calls from colleagues, messages from people he barely knew. Some offered support. Others warned him to watch his back. That evening, a message arrived from an unknown number. "You should have turned it off." He stared at the screen until it dimmed. The streets outside were quiet again, but the silence felt different. He wasn't sure if it was relief or dread. The Bodycam had kept rolling. And now, nothing would ever be the same. The investigation spread fast. Within 48 hours, every officer at the precinct knew that Sergeant Miller was under review. The whispers followed Reese through every hallway. Some called him brave. Others called him reckless. No one spoke to him directly for long. The captain summoned him first thing Monday morning. Reese walked into the office, shoulders squared, uniform pressed. Captain Torres sat behind the desk, eyes cold. The blinds were closed. A single folder lay open in front of him. "Sit," Torres said. Reese obeyed. "You uploaded that footage the same night?" "Yes, sir. Unaltered?" "Yes, sir." Torres nodded once, silent for a long moment. "Internal Affairs has full control now. They've requested you stay on administrative duty until the review is complete. No patrols. No field work." Reese's throat tightened. "Understood." Torres leaned back. "You did your job. Remember that. But things are going to get rough. Miller has friends in this department. Some high up." Reese said nothing. Torres slid a paper across the desk. "Sign this. It confirms you're aware of the temporary reassignment." He signed. The meeting ended. Outside the office, Reese passed 2 officers by the vending machines. They stopped talking when he walked by. One of them, Officer Dent, muttered under his breath, "Snitch." Reese kept walking. He spent the next week filing reports, sitting in front of a computer, reviewing hours of unrelated footage. The silence was constant. The hum of fluorescent lights became his only company. At night, he tried to sleep, but his mind kept replaying the motel scene. Miller's voice, the look in Amber Hayes's eyes, the message on his phone. The department hadn't found who sent it. The number was untraceable. 3 days later, IA called him back. The lead investigator, Special Agent Keller, met him in a conference room. The walls were bare except for a flag and a clock that ticked too loud. Keller placed a small recorder on the table. "Interview continuation, subject, Officer Daniel Reese," Keller said into the device. "Date, time, and case reference logged. Officer, we've reviewed your footage and cross-checked it with previous evidence reports. The bag Sergeant Miller took contained trace samples from a prior seizure. Those samples were marked destroyed 2 months ago." Reese sat still. Keller continued. "We also pulled GPS data from Miller's cruiser. The night after the motel call, he drove to a warehouse on Route 19. Unscheduled stop. No record of it," Reese frowned. "What's at that location?" "A property linked to a local distributor. Small-scale operation. We're putting it under surveillance." Keller shut the file. "We'll need you to testify if this goes to a hearing." Reese nodded once. "Yes, sir." He left the room with a hollow feeling. What started as a noise complaint had turned into a corruption case. That evening, Reese returned to his apartment. Mail stacked on the counter. He tossed it aside, sat on the couch, and turned on the TV. News anchors were already covering the story. "Veteran Sergeant under investigation for evidence tampering," the headline read. They didn't name Reese, but they showed a photo of the precinct. The damage was done. He muted the volume and stared at the screen. At 11:37 p.m., someone knocked on his door. 3 quick taps. Then silence. He stood, hand near his sidearm. "Who is it?" No answer. He opened the door slowly. The hallway was empty. A small envelope lay on the floor. He picked it up. Inside was a single photo, taken from a distance. It showed him leaving the IA office earlier that day. No note, no signature. He felt the chill move up his spine. The next morning, he reported it to IA. Keller took the envelope, expression unreadable. "We'll handle it," he said, but Reese knew what that meant. Wait and hope it didn't get worse. The department placed Miller on unpaid suspension. Rumors said he'd hired a lawyer and claimed the footage was edited. IA checked the file metadata. It matched the original upload, no edits. Still, the hearing would take weeks. Reese's life narrowed to a routine of paperwork and silence. Each day, fewer people met his eyes. A few officers avoided him entirely. In the locker room, someone had written "Traitor" on his locker in marker. He wiped it off without a word. Late Thursday, Keller called again. "We're issuing a subpoena for Miller's phone records. We might find proof of contact with known dealers." Reese nodded. "Anything else you need from me?" "Stay alert," Keller said. "If anyone pressures you, document it." That night, Reese parked outside his apartment complex and sat in the dark. A car drove past slowly, headlights off. He noted the make and model, a silver sedan with tinted windows. He waited until it turned the corner before heading inside. Sleep didn't come. By morning, he decided to look for Amber Hayes. He still had her information from the report. She might hold a piece of the puzzle. He found her address on file, an apartment 2 towns over. He drove there off duty. The building looked worn down but occupied. He knocked. No response. He knocked again. A neighbor opened the door next to hers. "You looking for Amber?" "Yes, Officer Reese." The man shook his head. "She moved out 2 days ago. Left fast." Didn't say where. Reese thanked him and left. The sense of pressure in his chest grew heavier. Someone had warned her. When he returned home, another envelope waited under his door. Inside was a short note written in black ink. "Stop talking about the motel." No signature. No return address. He sat at the table for a long time, the paper between his fingers. He'd done his duty, followed the rules. But the storm wasn't over. It was building behind the walls, ready to break. And deep down, Reese knew one thing. The camera hadn't just recorded the truth. It had opened a door that wouldn't close again. 2 weeks passed. The investigation dragged through layers of paperwork and interviews. Officer Reese kept his head down, showing up on time, answering questions, following orders. But the tension around him grew heavier each day. The halls felt quieter, the air tighter. People avoided eye contact. Miller's suspension had divided the department. Some said Reese saved the badge's integrity. Others whispered that he'd betrayed one of their own. In a job built on loyalty, that label stuck like a scar. The day started like the rest. Rain again. Cold wind scraping across the parking lot. Reese walked in, badge clipped straight, uniform crisp. The front desk officer barely nodded as he passed. At his desk, an envelope sat on top of the morning reports. No name. Inside was a printout of a photo. His car parked outside Amber Hayes' old apartment. Under it, written in red marker, "Stop digging." He locked the photo in his drawer and didn't mention it. Reporting threats hadn't stopped them. It only made them smarter. Around noon, IA called him in again. Keller waited with 2 others, an analyst and an assistant DA. Keller spoke first. "We traced Miller's phone. He contacted a number tied to a known supplier. The warehouse you mentioned is confirmed active. DEA is stepping in. We'll coordinate with them." Reese nodded. "What about Amber Hayes?" Keller exchanged a look with the analyst. "She's missing. Her phone's been off since the night she moved. We've issued a welfare alert, but there's nothing yet." Reese sat still, jaw tight. "You think Miller's involved?" "We can't say," Keller replied, "but the timing fits." They spent the next hour reviewing footage again, frame by frame. Reese watched the same moments for the 10th time. The flicker of the neon light, the bag, the look on Miller's face. Every detail burned into memory. When the session ended, Keller stood. "Be careful. We're close to something. Don't go anywhere alone." Reese nodded and left. That evening, he drove home slower than usual, checking his mirrors every few minutes. The same silver sedan appeared again, 2 cars behind. It stayed there through 3 turns. When Reese pulled into a gas station, it kept going. He filled the tank, eyes on the road, hand near his weapon. No one else stopped there, only the hum of the pump and the soft hiss of rain. Back at his apartment, he placed his service weapon on the table and sat across from it. He thought about turning it in, taking a break, asking for protection. But the thought of stepping away felt worse. He needed to see this through. 3 days later, Miller requested a formal meeting. His lawyer called the department to set it up. Keller approved, asking Reese to attend as a witness. The meeting took place in a neutral office at City Hall, not the precinct. Neutral ground. Miller arrived first, wearing civilian clothes. His face looked older, heavier. He didn't glance at Reese until the recorder turned on. Keller opened. Sergeant Miller, this meeting is for voluntary clarification. You understand you're under investigation for evidence tampering and obstruction." "I understand," Miller said. "You were recorded telling Officer Reese to turn off his camera. Why?" Miller leaned forward. "Because I was protecting a confidential source. The bag contained test samples, not active evidence." Keller slid a document across the table. "That bag's serial number matches a batch marked destroyed in March. That's theft of evidence." Miller didn't flinch. "Those logs are wrong, and Reese knows that." Reese's stomach tightened. "That's false." Miller turned his gaze on him, steady and cold. "You always wanted to make a name for yourself. Here's your chance." Keller raised a hand. "Stay on record, gentlemen." The next hour passed in tense exchanges. Miller denied everything, accusing Reese of mishandling his upload. When the meeting ended, Miller stood close enough for Reese to hear the low growl of his voice. "You don't know who you're fighting." Reese met his stare. "Then you should have thought before saying, 'Turn off the camera.'" They left in silence. That night, Reese drove straight to his parents' house 2 towns away. He needed distance. The old place sat quiet, porch light flickering. His mother opened the door, surprised. "Danny, what's wrong?" "Nothing, Mom. Just needed to see you." She smiled softly. "You haven't done that in a while." They ate dinner without talking about the investigation. She didn't ask, and he didn't offer. But the calm didn't last. When he got back to his apartment the next evening, the door was unlocked. He froze, drew his weapon. The room looked untouched at first. No broken glass, no forced entry. But the drawer where he'd kept the photos was open. The envelope was gone. He swept the place, cleared each corner. Empty. Whoever came knew what they were looking for. He called Keller immediately. Within an hour, 2 agents arrived. They dusted for prints, took statements, collected footage from the hallway cameras. The building system had glitched for 30 minutes that night. No usable images. Keller's tone stayed calm, but his eyes told another story. "We're putting a detail outside your building. Don't leave town. We're close to filing charges." Reese nodded, though his pulse thudded hard. At 2 a.m., he sat awake on the couch, the glow of the streetlight bleeding through blinds. His phone buzzed again, another blocked number. He answered without speaking. A man's voice came through, rough, low. "You should have turned it off." Then silence. Reese sat frozen. The call ended itself. He checked the timestamp, 2:17 a.m. He wrote it down, saved the log, sent it to Keller. He couldn't sleep after that. The next morning, news broke that Miller had been found unconscious in his car outside a diner on Route 19. Overdose suspected. He was alive, but in critical condition. A syringe and a packet of white powder were recovered from the passenger seat. Reese watched the report in disbelief. It didn't fit the man he knew, but maybe that was the point. Keller called within minutes. "It's not what it looks like," Keller said flatly. "The powder wasn't narcotics. It was pure glucose. Someone staged it. Miller didn't inject anything. Someone wanted him silenced." Reese's grip on the phone tightened. "And they failed. For now," Keller said. "We're moving you to protective housing until this is finished. You'll testify when he wakes up." Reese packed a single bag. As he left, the rain started again, steady and cold. He looked, once at his reflection in the cruiser window, the man who kept the camera on, and in doing so, crossed a line no one wanted crossed. He wasn't sure who was hunting him now, but he knew why. The truth was out there, tangled in the footage, and someone was desperate to erase it. The storm hadn't ended. It was only beginning. Protective housing felt more like exile. A small furnished apartment near the city limits. 1 window, 1 exit. 2 unmarked cars parked nearby 24 hours a day. Officer Reese lived between those walls for nearly a week, waiting for a call that would decide everything. Each morning started the same. Coffee. Silence. A check through the blinds. Every shadow looked like a threat. Every sound in the hallway made him reach for his weapon. The pressure didn't fade. It sharpened. Keller called on the 7th day. "Miller's awake," he said. "We need you at the hospital." Reese grabbed his badge and left without a word. The drive took 20 minutes. 2 agents escorted him through the emergency wing to a secured room guarded by local police. Miller lay propped against white pillows, pale but alert. His wrists trembled slightly. The room smelled of antiseptic and rain-soaked pavement from an open window. Keller nodded to Reese. "You can talk." Reese stepped closer. Miller's eyes followed him, dull but sharp with something deeper. Regret or exhaustion, maybe both. "You look like hell," Reese said quietly. Miller managed a faint grin. "So do you." They stared at each other for a long time. Then Miller spoke, voice rasping. "They tried to shut me up." "Not the dealers. The ones upstairs," Reese frowned. "Who?" "The lieutenant. Maybe higher. That warehouse wasn't just a bus site. It's where they moved the off-record evidence. Drugs that never made it to the lab. Guns, too. They skimmed small amounts, then filed them as destroyed. Clean on paper, dirty in practice." Reese's pulse quickened. "And you were part of it?" "I was. Until I wasn't. I took that bag from Colin Ward to hold as leverage. Thought it'd protect me. Instead, it marked me." Reese leaned closer. "Amber Hayes disappeared." Miller nodded weakly. "She was their courier. She moved small packages between sites. When she talked to you, she became a problem. They pulled her out before she could talk again." Reese's jaw tightened. "Where is she?" Miller closed his eyes. "Maybe still alive. Maybe not. Look at the warehouse logs. Route 19, Locker 13. You'll find everything." Keller listened from the corner, already typing notes. "We'll confirm that. You rest." Miller gripped Reese's wrist before he turned. "You did right keeping that camera on." "Don't stop now," Reese nodded. "I won't." Outside the room, Keller spoke fast. "We'll hit that location tonight. DEA's joining. You're staying in command vehicle. You don't move in. Clear?" "Clear," Reese said. By dusk, the operation was live. Agents set perimeter positions around the warehouse. Floodlights cut through fog. The night buzzed with quiet voices and static from radios. Reese sat in the command truck, eyes locked on the live drone feed. Inside the building, figures moved. 3 men, 1 woman. Keller's team breached with silent precision. Shouts followed, boots pounding, then gunfire. Short bursts. "Controlled. Suspects down," a voice called over comms. Reese watched the screen as agents cuffed the survivors and searched lockers. Keller's voice came through steady. "Locker 13 located. Opening now." The feed zoomed in. Inside were dozens of sealed bags, boxes of ammo, and files stamped "Evidence. Destroyed." Keller's voice hardened. "We've got them. This connects straight to the department." Reese exhaled, tension breaking in his chest. For the first time in weeks, the truth was visible, but the relief didn't last. Minutes later, a second explosion shook the feed. The camera cut out. Static filled the screen. The truck lights flickered. "Talk to me," Reese said into the comm. No response. He grabbed a vest, ignored orders, and ran toward the scene. Smoke rose from the warehouse roof. Fire alarms wailed through the night. Agents were dragging people out, coughing and shouting. Keller stumbled through the haze, blood streaking his temple. "Gas leak," he coughed. Secondary device. "Someone rigged it." Reese helped pull him back. "Anyone missing?" "1 suspect. The woman." Reese froze. "Amber?" Keller nodded weakly. "She was there. She ran before it blew." They cleared the site through dawn. By sunrise, emergency crews had extinguished the fire. The building's front half was gone. Locker 13 had been shielded by concrete, half the contents still intact. Enough evidence to confirm the ring existed. Back at headquarters, the fallout hit fast. Arrests spread through the ranks. 2 lieutenants, 1 evidence technician, and a civilian contractor, all charged with conspiracy, theft, and obstruction. The news broke by noon. Reese's name appeared in every headline. Bodycam officer exposes internal corruption. The department called it a victory for accountability. But for Reese, it didn't feel like one. He visited Miller again that evening. The sergeant was weaker, but awake. "They got them," Reese said. Miller's lips twitched. "Took long enough," Reese hesitated. "Amber's alive. She ran before the blast. Keller's team is tracking her now." "Good," Miller whispered. "She didn't deserve this." They sat in silence until the nurse entered. Before leaving, Miller said one last thing. "Don't stay. Departments forget heroes fast. Find a new badge, or none at all." Reese didn't respond. 2 weeks later, the hearings began. Reese testified under oath, bodycam footage played before the board, unedited. The sound of Miller's voice echoed again. "Turn off the camera." Those 4 words sealed the case. The board ruled the evidence ring exposed, the guilty officers terminated and charged. After the verdict, Keller met him in the hallway. "You're clear." Full reinstatement offered. Commendation pending. Reese looked at the badge in his hand. It felt heavier than before. "I'm done," he said quietly. Keller nodded. "I figured." Reese turned in the badge that afternoon. No ceremony, no speech. He walked out of the precinct and didn't look back. Weeks later, he stood by the highway where it all started. The motel was boarded up now, the neon sign dark. Wind carried the faint sound of rain. He thought about Amber, about Miller, about the camera that caught everything. Some truths cost more than silence. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the old body cam. The department had cleared it for personal possession. It still worked. The small green light blinked once as he set it down on the ground. He walked away without turning it off. That night ended more than one career, but it also exposed a system that needed cleaning. The footage spoke louder than any badge ever could. If you want a free guide on how bodycam footage is reviewed and protected under law, check the link in the description. And remember, sometimes the truth survives only because someone refused to stop recording.